morning, everyone.
Good morning.
You're in for a real story today. It's more than a story. But I first saw Kristen Benedetti's work, please come in, at the McConnell Art Center. She was in, her work, she had several portraits there. And I was so enthralled, they were beautifully rendered. But they were framed in such an innovative way that I'm thinking, I've got to find out more about this. And it's quite a story. I did then go to another time when I could actually see more images and hear her talking about it, which made me want to share that with all of you today. So I don't want to take up, because the presentation I went to was 2 hours and lots of questions. So she already knows that we have a service at 10.
Yes.
So Kirsten Benedetti, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm glad to be here.
And what I like is because this is a smaller group, the best way is to have a dialogue. So feel free if you have questions as I go, raise your hand. Otherwise, I will try and go as quickly through. I can talk about this project endlessly, as everyone knows who's seen me. So I'm gonna try and be a little more concise than I usually am, so that we have enough time to have we can talk about what you want to talk about. But all that is to say, I'm Kirsta, and I am an artist here in Columbus. I'm from Columbus. I have a history of doing social engagement professionally and also in art professionally. For a long time, my careers were parallel, and about 6 years ago, they were able to join, and I created a practice that integrates storytelling, programming, community engagement, and art making. And through this process,
Sorry.
Oh, okay, you're good. Through the process of developing this practice, I ended up connected to an organization who was doing an oral history program inside a women's prison, Ohio Reformatory for Women in Marysville. And essentially, I love people. I care about people, and what I realized is that when someone is painted, that they are immediately elevated as just someone who is valuable, worthwhile. It is just our cultural and historical. Okay, great. Our value system is still structured around painted portraits are only for the most important, the wealthiest, the most powerful. And even though we have access to all of these selfies and our cameras can take amazing pictures on our phone, yet still a painted portrait, when someone would come into my studio and see a painting of someone, they would immediately ask, is this person famous? And so because of that, I was like, this is a really potent tool for social change. And I was constantly trying to figure out ways for my art to bridge gaps and to humanize and elevate certain people groups that are marginalized as a form of justice work. When thinking about this practice, the incarcerated were by far the most needed of this kind of humanization and elevation. And so when I started connecting to people who were already working with these women, one of the staff members was a mental health professional in this prison for 22 years, and the program got kicked out after COVID. And she was just like, this is the best place, I love these women. And she really encouraged me to pursue the possibility of doing my portrait program inside the prison. She also introduced me to the warden and got me a meeting, which is really hard. It took 6 months to get that meeting. And the warden said, sure. I presented this really wild idea that no one's ever done. I was like, I'm gonna come and do a year-long program where I teach the women and do art therapy and then we do storytelling, but then I'm gonna paint their portrait and exhibit them as a form of advocacy. She was like, okay, let's do it. So that is the program. These are the 15 women that I was able to work with for almost 3 years. And they changed my life. And I love them all dearly. Some of them have been released. And this group of women in particular were selected by the warden, and a majority of them are serving extended sentences. So that's usually 20 to life. and some of them life without parole. And so that gave a certain gravity to the work that we were doing. Most of them were at the multiple decade line of their sentence, so they have been incarcerated for a long time. Most of them committed their crimes in their, late teens, early 20s, and in their 40s and 50s. So their entire identity is shaped around incarceration and around this one thing that they did. And so that made this work even more potent in some ways. The whole concept, not the whole concept, the title, Life is Precious, comes from a quote from Ruth Wilson Gilmore, where she said, life is precious. Where life is precious, life is precious. And she reminds us that when society treats life as valuable, systems evolve around care, equity, and support. But when inequality runs deep, the state responds not with resources, but with punishment and prisons. And so for me, when I heard that quote, and I was working with this group of women, especially women who have life without parole, where essentially our society has said, you are not worth investing in, you just need to rot here, we don't really care what you do, who you are. And a lot of that is shown by they are barred from participating in a lot of programming in education, because it's like, well, why would we invest in you because you're not getting out? You're not gonna give back at all to our community on the outside, so therefore you're worthless. And so for me, I wanted to highlight that their life is precious, lives are precious, no matter if it's behind walls or not. So that's where the title comes from. And I started thinking about this, question, and if I could help other people think about, what if we treated every life as precious, like truly every life, what would it mean to see incarcerated women not as problems to be managed, but as people to be cherished? And so that's kind of the root of the work that I do. So this is the room that we would meet in. It's kind of like a community center inside the prison, and we would meet weekly for 2 hours for 2.5 years, which is crazy. The prison doesn't really do that and actually put the kibosh on that, sadly. But the woman who's doing this project over here is one of the art therapy, or I can't say it's art therapy because I'm not an art therapist. It is a therapy-informed art project. I try to help them focus on their personal strengths and to see the good that's already in them. I'm not here to make them good. I'm here to highlight that they are good, and to reconcile their identity with themselves instead of allowing their incarceration to usurp their identity completely. And so we did things like a strengths mandala. I tried to help them think really abstractly in what they had in them and highlight that through these programs. So this is an example of one of the portraits. So as part of my process, I reflected on what portraiture means as a reflection of a person, and what portraiture looks like when you are incarcerated. That essentially your only portrait that's out there is your mugshot, and that is the worst version of anyone ever. Even the really, really attractive, glitzy movie stars, when they get a mugshot, it's like, who is that person? It is not a good portrait. And then when you are hidden behind the walls, there's no more access to you, and therefore nothing else ever gets out about you. And your story is also the same. The people think that they can know about you or your story by looking up your public case or any kind of media around your case, and they're like, well, I know what she did, why she did it, and how she did it. And it's like, that's not the story, that's not all. And actually, especially with women, it's usually a pretty minimal version of the story. So I wanted to use the portraiture as a way of giving back agency over their stories and their identities to the women. So I gave over a lot of my authority as the artist, and I worked with them to create this work. They guided me. I did make all of it, but they guided me conceptually from the beginning. I would meet one-on-one with the camera after class, and we would just be in front of a big window, so it'd be natural light, and I would say, how do you want to be represented in this? And then if they knew, then we would talk about what kind of pose they might want to have in order to communicate that visually. My profession is visual communication. communication. So I don't expect them to know how to communicate that. So we would work together on how to get what they were looking for. And some of them knew what they wanted and some of them didn't. And when they felt like, I'm not really sure, I don't know, then I would just start asking them questions and taking photos. And we would do kind of this, I would say, tell me about your children. Tell me about your sister that you mentioned in class the other day. And they would light up and they would talk. And I would take, 100 photos. And then I would give them the camera and they'd flip through and they would pick their top 3 that they liked, whether I liked them or not. That was harder for me. As a trained professional artist, there are like design concepts. You're like, this will make a strong piece, and they often picked ones that wouldn't. But that was the concept, is that I wanted them to be in charge of it, and the authenticity of the representation was important. So they picked their pose. And then the object. So what you can see in this piece in particular, which is why I use it as an example, is these pieces are 3-dimensional, and so it's like a shadow box. They are life size, so each one stands about this tall. I wanted the portrait to be as life size as I could get, or larger, so when you are in front of it, you feel like you're in front of a person. And then they're about 6 inches wide, so there's depth, and as you can see, there's a hole inside of it. I wanted to remove the external symbol of their incarceration so that when you see the portrait, you don't immediately know that they're incarcerated, which would be their prison uniform. So the state-issued prison uniform is all the same. It's awful and ugly and made for men. Actually, I think it's hand-me-downs from a men's prison, which is very standard for the women's prisons. Whatever the men get is much better than what the women tend to get. And so I physically cut a hole in they're made out of the wood, to leave this empty space. I didn't want to just paint a new shirt for them and say, tell me your favorite, what kind of clothing do you like to wear, and just like cover over it. I wanted to highlight that there is something that has been removed, and then filled in. And so I worked with each one of them to come up with these sculptural 3-dimensional objects to fill the space that represents them more accurately and better than their crime ever did. And so Jillian here, as an example, she knew right away. She was like, I want green vines. And so for her, she said that she's always related to green vines because people see them as invasive, as destructive, as a nuisance. And that they like ruin buildings and that everyone should get rid of them. And she related to that because actually it's a very communal ecosystem. They create structures of support for each other as well as for other plants to work within their vines, and an ecosystem of bugs and creatures that can live inside of them. So she was like, actually they create good things even though people see them as problematic. And so she always related to that. And so I filled the space with this green vines that kind of came out. So not all of them are like that. This is a video of one of the pieces so that you can see. So you can see there's just a hole back there. So this is my process. I wish I painted this quickly, but sadly. I do paint pretty quickly at this point, but I had to make a lot of these I had to make in 2 weeks. And so that nearly killed me. The painting part wasn't the hard part. It was building the box. And then if I had to make the objects, that was really hard. I can explain Adriana while I'm painting her. She's from Mexico, and she learned English inside the prison. And she wanted when she thought about what she wants for her object, she wanted a traditional Mexican shawl, a rebozo, because to her that was quintessential female Mexican. And her mom, so this is the shawl that I'm installing inside of her shirt. And she picked out the color and the type.
That's cool.
And she said that her mom every year got a new one of these for Our Lady of Guadalupe Festival. And so for her, that would feel the most like her and the most honoring. And so these are a couple of different examples of the other pieces. I'm not gonna go into details. This is how I can cut short, is usually I go into extensive detail about each one. I will tell you a little bit about Mindy. Hers is really interesting. So you probably can't see it a whole lot, but it's a starry night sky. And so, and actually there's like a parallax effect. So when you see it, it like kind of moves with you and it feels like a depth. So Mindy, she was one of the more difficult ones to kind of find objects because she came with a very abstract concept. She wanted to be known for her freedom from addiction to heroin. She committed her crime addicted, and then, like most people, went to jail addicted and became clean in jail. And the thing about jail is that vast majority of jails do not have really windows or a yard, and so you do not go outside for as long as you're in jail. And of course, she didn't have any money to pay bail, and her trial lasted a really long time. And so she was in jail for almost 2 years. And so she did not see the sky for that whole time. And when she was transferred to the prison after sentencing, it was in the middle of the night. It was like 1 or 2 a.m. And so when she got off the bus and went through the yard at the prison, she saw the night sky for the first time. And that's when she realized that when she was addicted, she could not see beauty. And so the beauty of the night sky was like, oh my gosh, this is what it feels like to be free of my addiction. That was a moment she realized was really, really poignant to her. And so she wanted the night sky to be her representation, which as an artist is really hard to do. And I'm not a sculptor, so I had to really figure this one out. But I ended up using glitter on tulle. So you never know, the craft store was my friend in this project. And Heather, she is someone who has life without parole, and she has been incarcerated since she was 19. And just in these recent years, she has become more at peace with who she is and with her life moving forward. And a lot of that is this program really helped give her a support system and a group of people that really cared for her. She's one that she called herself a lone wolf. She said, everybody knows of me, nobody knows me. And so this project, with the storytelling that we did and the group work we did, she opened up and then saw the response was so affirming and supportive and loving that it really helped her to open up. And that encouraged her to get trained as a St. Stephen's minister. And so part of that role inside the prison is to sit outside of solitary confinement. And so she gives presence and kind of lay counseling to anybody who's in solitary. And that has given her purpose, that has given her direction, and she's realized that her life is valuable and she can really give back, even if it's just to these people in this space. And she had said, this is really meaningful to me because I was in solitary for 1.5 years at some point, and I would have done anything to have somebody outside my door to talk to. So for Heather, she wanted white doves to represent the peace that she has in her current life and her life inside the prison for the remainder of it. So something that I was prepared for was the viewers change, the viewers on the outside and the public to change their perspective on the incarcerated. What I was not prepared for was the impact it would have on the women themselves. And so at the end, once I painted everyone's portrait, I asked each woman to write a letter to their portrait. So it was not a letter to me, it was not a letter about, it was not, let's talk about how much you like this project. It was very vulnerable because it was to themselves, but in this external visualization. So Jillian's was really powerful, and it kind of revealed to me the impact of being painted to them. So I'll read it real quick. She called herself, her painting is Avatar Jillian. So, dear Avatar Jillian, when I saw you, I felt a genuine and deep feeling of love. I knew I admired you, respected you, and strangely envied you. You are unashamedly announcing to the world that you are here. You are amazing, and you are worth people's time. I have struggled to do exactly what you are doing effortlessly. You showed up and people noticed. They were moved by you. They saw strength, determination, beauty, and grace. Just like your vines, you permeated their lives and started the shift of change. You made an impact. Your legacy is one of positive movement forward. I never thought I was allowed to be proud of myself because of what I'd done. I never thought I could be anything positive for someone while living in the shadow of my past. I'm eternally grateful that you did all of these things without guilt, showing me that I too can let go of my shame because you are me. Love always, in real life, Jillian. So that, really intrigued me. What is going on? Seeing a painting of yourself is bringing out this. And what I have found through reading just the small amounts of research that I found on this kind of work, no one's done it with incarcerated people, but there's one person who has done something similar of painting portraits by being guided by people. In the UK, she worked with terminally ill patients, and terminal illness does usurp your identity. All of a sudden, all you are is your illness to most people, to yourself, to your whole daily life. And so being able to paint someone through their direction that is beyond this usurping identity brings a freedom to them and kind of reintegrates their identity with who they truly are. And so that is what I started seeing, is that looking at themselves in this external way and painted with bright colors and in a beautiful way. It's not an exaggerated portrait or anything. It is them, but to them it represents all the good that they might believe they have in themselves and that they would want to be. And so it has this integrating effect. So another aspect of the program that I really find important is not just a visual, something that when viewers come into a gallery, that they're not just looking at these portraits. I wanted people to hear these women's stories in their own words, in their own handwriting. I wanted to bring dimensionality. Most of the stories that you would know about an incarcerated person is from a true crime podcast, or whatever Lifetime video might be out there. And so I collected questions that were humanizing and that would engage these women in ways that most people would not necessarily ask someone who's incarcerated. And things like, when have you felt most beautiful? And how do you describe yourself? How do others describe you? Giving them agency over their story, once again. And then they each got these little black books, and those are on exhibition whenever I show the portraits. And so they would write their answers. We would ask 3 questions per session in 2 hours. They would write their answers, and then we would go around and share them. So that's Melanie. I recorded, I don't want this, just so I don't pull it down. I recorded them just so I could make sure I'm not missing anything. But yeah, and I brought a box of markers each time, and so they love to embellish their writing and include a lot of interesting things. And those stories are, there we go. Those stories are incredibly powerful. And I'm currently working on a grant to hire somebody to develop a website that's more interactive. Because what I found is with these stories, people will come to the show, they'll see the artwork, they want to engage with it, and then they see the booklets because they're kind of subtle and small, and then they realize, oh, I probably need to spend 2 hours reading these books, and they don't have that. And so I want to scan all of the booklets and put their stories online so people can engage with them on their own time at home. They don't have to see them in person. So the current update on this program is the warden said that I was too close with these women, which is true. I was very close with them after that long. And each time that I would show this work, I've shown the body of work 11 times in a gallery setting. Each time there would be interactive elements. And so I would collect all of these responses and letters and comments and videos for the women, and then I would bring it back to them. And they would be able to see the outpouring of what people care about, how they care about them. And so once my last exhibition closed, the warden was like, you have no reason to be here, so you need to stop. The sad thing is about this work is that because they have really strong boundaries for the women's safety as well as for the volunteers, I am not allowed to speak to them ever again. Unless they are in a program, and during that program time, I am not allowed to speak to them. I can't write letters, I can't communicate in any way. If we're passing in the hallway in the prison, we can say hi. That's about as much as we can do. So the emotional side of this is hard.
Why? Did you pose a threat?
It's
their
more
person?
so that they are very nervous about developing an inappropriate relationship. And basically, if I wanted to connect with them, if I wanted to visit them, talk to them, reach out to them, I would have to give up my volunteer badge and I would never be able to come in and do another program. So I would only be able to communicate with that person. So I had to kind of choose. And obviously, I want to keep doing this work. And so I have to give up any relationship. When they get out of prison, that can be different. And there have been a few that have gotten out. Some of them were actively using drugs when they got out. So I am not engaged with them. But there is one woman who got out and she's doing amazing and she is a part of this nonprofit that I started. So I started a Whole Picture Project. I tried, when I did this program, I did it all myself and it was really hard. And I raised all the money and I wrote grants and I partnered with nonprofits to get funding. And then I also facilitated the work and then I made the artwork and then I exhibited the artwork. And it almost killed me. And I was like, I love this work, I wanna keep doing it. But I also found that nonprofits are great. You can have great partnerships and relationships with them, but they will never prioritize the work like I will because this is my program. And I'm just kind of asking them for favors. And so I wanted to keep doing this work forever, potentially, because I love it. And I realized I needed to have to start my own nonprofit. So this is actually the second nonprofit I've started, so I kind of knew what I was getting into. I really didn't want to do it because I know what I'm getting into. But I knew that in order to make this sustainable, I needed to do my own. So I started the Whole Picture Project, and we are a 501c3. It's been almost a year since it's been established, and a big part of it is we have an advisory board that helps basically with all messaging, making sure that everything is dignified. The advisory board is exclusively women who are incarcerated. And hopefully, as more women get out of the program who've gone through my program, it will be those women as well. And so yeah, it is new, we are starting, and the warden gave permission to turn this into a permanent long-term program. The bummer is, she was like, you can't spend that much time in such a small group, I'm sorry. And 15 women felt like a pretty good size, and I also, not only with the program, the feel of the group, am I thinking, but also the making of the art. And we wanted to create a one-year program, so it was a little more structured. And the woman that I had said who introduced me into the prison, who was a mental health worker, she was retiring from this other nonprofit. And she was like, I would love to just lead a group in the prison. That would be all I want to do. I don't want to work. I don't want to do anything else in the nonprofit world, but if I could just lead a group. And I was like, I need someone to lead a group. So I snagged her, which is wonderful. She's an amazing person to work with, Annette Dominguez. And so we came together to create a new version of the curriculum, which kind of takes the best of my work. And then her foundational mental health work. So she has created a 6-week program that does real basic trauma, knowledge about trauma, about how to even open up and communicate about yourself, and real basic social emotional health. And so that kind of sets the tone, because when they get into my program, I throw them in the deep end. I didn't even know how deep I was throwing them, because I was like, these are easy questions. And the first day of journaling, it was like week 2. I barely knew these people. And trust is a hard thing in this context. And so I started with, how would you describe yourself? And when have you felt most beautiful? I was like, these are softball questions. They're sobbing and they're like, oh my gosh, you throw us in the deep end right away. And I was like, ooh, I didn't know, because I never worked with those who are incarcerated. And so, this group, there's a reason why the warden picked them. They are the creme de la creme. They are the healthiest, they lead all the groups. I started showing up at the prison for other events, and of course, they're at the top, they're at the front leading everything. They were a safe bet for this warden to be like, these women can do it very well. And they are, and they're leaders, and it's amazing. And so they were willing to go there with me, but the average person probably wouldn't right off the bat. So we needed something to kind of prime the pump to establish our groundwork. So that's what Annette is doing. The thing is, the warden wanted 40 women in the program instead of 15. I was like, no, I can't paint that many. And she was like, well, if you can't paint that many, then you can't do the artwork as a part of the program. I was like, no, that's literally what I'm doing. And no one else is doing this in the world that I know of. And so like it's working. Like the art is working. So no. So we kind of came up with a compromise, and we will have 40 women go through in these smaller groups with Annette's work, and then we will pick 15 women out of a hat, and they will move on for a 6-month program with me. So I won't be able to do all of them in that kind of big box way, but I'm coming up with a way to do portraits for everyone.
Is this here in Columbus or in Ohio or?
It's in Marysville, yes.
Okay.
The women's prison is in Marysville.
Okay.
Yeah. There's only 2, well, there's technically 3, but one's like a going home center, but 2 prisons in Ohio for women. One's in Dayton and then Marysville. And fortunately, I don't want to drive to Dayton every week, so that works well.
Isn't there one down towards Chillicothe?
It probably is a men's prison. There are county jails everywhere for women.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
when we went through there, it said that it was a women's prison
Do you remember when that was?
last month or last month. I'll get my daughter because she was in office for 25 years and we were
Okay.
talking about that, so.
Yeah.
But
that'd
there
be
was, I think it said women's prison.
Okay. I have only known 2 women's prisons, and then there's the going home centers in Cleveland. So that would be the only
Because
thing.
you had the women on one side and the men on the other.
I would be curious if it was a jail then, a county jail.
Well, it had the barbed wire around the fencing.
Oh,
and
yeah,
everything.
yeah, jails
This is
definitely
prison.
do that, yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious, yeah, I'll look that up.
I'm gonna find her and find out.
Yeah, yes.
Do you present this at universities?
I would love to, that's actually, I have before, there was a university, gosh, where was it? I don't remember, somewhere in, it was a Mennonite university. And what I like about universities is that they are looking for more engagement in programming.
Right, I teach at Denison and
Okay,
I'm a cellist, I'm not an artist.
Okay.
I'm not an artist, but I'm a
sure,
musician.
yeah.
And I'm looking at this going, the young people would grab this hook, line, and sinker. This would be so meaningful and also possibly assistants, young artists that would assist you
Yeah.
in the preparatory.
Which would be lovely.
Right,
Yes, one of the reasons why I don't often show these anymore is because it's an incredibly laborious show. They each weigh about 60 pounds. And once you've shown, like, you can only ask your friends to help, like, once or twice. And
right,
I'm
but
like,
if you had a group of young artists, they would have to be juniors and seniors.
yeah, that would be wonderful.
Because it's heavy, you
Yeah,
know?
let's talk about that.
Yeah,
I mean, right now, they are just stored in my studio, and mainly that's because I don't have the time or the margins with starting this nonprofit and starting the new program to apply for exhibitions, to kind of do the
Right.
legwork. But if you would to kind of head that up for me and get that conversation going,
well,
I would happily do that. I would even have it long term if they want it for longer than
right,
just, short term.
I'm adjunct, so
Okay.
I'd have to, I don't have the whole,
Sure.
but I
you
do
know
have,
people
I sure
to have a
do.
conversation.
And also what this would do, which universities like, especially a liberal arts like Denison, is they want to combine the words with the art, and to have the English department and the art department, they love it when the departments,
Intermix, yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
That's true liberal arts,
Yes.
so that would be, I just was interested in
Yeah.
what everybody thought of
Mhm.
doing and assistance.
Yes, that would be, let's have a conversation. I
Okay.
definitely will give you my email for that. I would love, ideally, I would love this work to be out there permanently. I would love somewhere like either a university or a nonprofit that engages with social justice work to have this work permanently. I don't want them to be stored in my studio. I'm gonna be making more work too, so I need space. My husband's like, are we gonna pay for a storage unit too? Not yet. So that would be my ideal, for sure. So yeah, anybody who especially would want the work up for like longer than a month, you know, where it's, cause anything less than a month, it's a lot of work to go in, you know, it's about 24 hours total of work to set up the entire show. And then because programming is half of it, I love talking, I love sharing. Megan, who's the woman who came out that I'm very engaged with, she does a great job telling her story, you know, like there's lots of opportunities. When I was connected to these women, since we were in a program, I have done a couple of times where we Zoom them in, so they would be on the screen and you would be able to talk with them. And so we've done that a few times, and I've done it at schools, and it's really, really powerful. So sadly, I can't do that at this point, but potentially, because I will have new groups coming in, that could be a conversation. I will be making, the president keeps saying, we don't have time to do what you need us to do to get the program started. So we are hopefully starting the new program in a couple of weeks. I will start making more work in the fall. And something I didn't get a chance to mention was that I got to have the first exhibition inside the prison.
Why did you mention that?
Yes, so if we have time, I have a video of the exhibition. It was, I was able to bring in 100 people from the public. And the women were each allowed to invite 5 guests, either inside or outside the prison, so their families came. And it was the best day of my life, for sure. And they were able to be present when people saw their work, they could share their stories. Over 1,000 residents came through the show as well and got to see the artwork, and heard their stories. And so for somebody like Heather, who never shared her story, she was open and sharing everything, and everyone was like, I didn't even know Heather could talk, this is amazing, and now she's telling us everything. So it was really powerful, and that is a big thing that at the end, the culmination of each year-long program will be an exhibition inside the prison. And so at this point, I also want to invite anybody who wants to partner in the work. It's a really exciting thing to partner with. We are looking for funding, and we are hoping to make this sustainable long-term. And so this is outdated because I have a whole picture project website. So yeah, you can go to wholepictureproject.com, and it has details of the organization, of the program. It has every single piece online. It also has video of Jillian's piece. Let's look at time. Okay, I can show you this 1-minute video.
Didn't you have prosecutors come?
We had 30 Ohio Public Defender's Office was very,
Defenders.
yes, and one of them, they heard the story of one of the women, and they were so appalled by what she got. So as a background, most of the women that I talked to, if not all, no, not all. There's a handful, maybe 2 out of 15 that didn't fall under this. The crime they committed was actually a man committed it, and then they were a co-defendant, and they got, even if they didn't actually do the harm, they got equal or more sentence as the man. And so that was the case with Hattie, and most of the time they're driving a car, the getaway car, and then the man harms somebody and they get the same sentence. So they heard about Hattie's story and they were so appalled, and they were like, and you had no record before, like nothing, and yet she got such a huge sentence, and that they were like, can we reopen your case? And so they brought her on, and they just recently, the only option they had, I don't know why, but the only option they had is clemency from the governor. So they just turned in her case. I gave them everything I had. I was like, I will write letters, here's all of her journals. Like, there's a lot. She is just a delight of a person, and would be a gift to any community she's a part of, inside or outside of prison. And so, we will, it's a shot in the dark, that's hard, but So it's inside the gym at the prison. So these are the guests, and I lined them around so that you can kind of be, so that's Hattie. And there's Heather. This is the full group. They are just a delight to be around. I don't think I laugh or cry as much as I do when I'm with them. And so people reading the stories. I also, I have these booklets where it explains what each object means. And this is the artwork that they made in the program, so you can go through that. And then a big thing with the work being at the prison is that the staff saw it. And I would bring in, as I finished each piece, I would bring in to do like a little mini reveal to the women. And at the guard's house, you have to unwrap everything and they have to look at it. And I would make sure that they unwrapped the whole thing so they could see the whole portrait, and they'd be like, I know her, oh my gosh. Like I could see the visible change when they saw this portrait of someone that they knew for years, and suddenly they're like, oh, and after the show, we talked as a group about, what are some of the interactions you had, what are some of the reflections staff had after seeing the artwork, because I had tons of staff coming up and saying, can I pay you to paint me? And I said, no. And the women loved that. They loved that they got something that the staff would never have. But numerous of them had stories of staff that came up to them and they're like, I see you now. Like, I feel like you're my neighbor, and no longer seeing them just as like a problem, but as a person. And so for me, that's also a big motivation to keep doing this work, is to change the perspective of the staff and how they engage with the women. So yeah, we do have time for questions.
Now, were the women, did they retain anything like a snapshot of their portrait, or
I was
what
able,
memory did they have?
yes, sadly I can't give them the portrait when they're in prison. They won't need, the prison won't, I was gonna donate it to the prison and they can't even keep it. Mainly because they feel like that would elevate those women over others, which is hard. They're all about trying to make things fair. But I gave them a professional print on really high quality watercolor paper. We always had lots of discussions since I've never been incarcerated, like what would be best for you? I'm never gonna assume what this would be like or what you'd prefer. And so I was like, I will give you a very large print. And they were like, nope, it needs to fit into a sleeve, an 8x10 sleeve, because correctional officers can take anything from them at any time. So they have a box, they call it a 2.4, it's 2.4 liters, I think, a metal box, and all of their possessions, including their clothing, have to fit into this box. And at any moment, a correctional officer can come into their space and say, I wanna do a 2.4 check. And they have to be able to fit everything they own into the box, and if whatever doesn't fit, they get confiscated. And they have a choice of either throwing it in the trash or mailing it to a family member. So if they don't have someone to mail their stuff to, then it gets taken. So they are always thinking about that. So they wanted it really small. So sadly, it is small, but a lot of them have talked about, even as it's been a couple of years, whenever they're feeling bad about themselves or, losing hope, they look at their portrait and they just remember who they are. And so they have that. So a lot of them have given them to family members. And I'm like, well, I would make you another one, but I'm not allowed. So, but they do have that option. Yeah. Any other questions?
Did you also do beautiful work that are not portraits on your website?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
It's when you can get it in with what you're.
I know, a little less now.
At this point.
I used to have a little more balance with like making my own work and then making this kind of work, but now and I'm happy with that. But yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. But it's such an honor to be able to use my skills to make work that I like making, but then for it to also do more than just the art as well. So it's a pretty big gift for sure. So yeah, I always forget to bring a piece of paper. But if you are interested, I will find a piece of paper. If you're interested in hearing more, having exhibitions, talks, we have a fundraiser coming up in May. At this point, that is the only time I have in the next year to see the artwork in person, is at this event. And so it'll be downtown in Franklinton. And Megan will be there to share her story. The board will be there to share a little bit more about what we're doing as an organization. And anyone's welcome to come. Right.
Okay, can we get some information about that, like
Yes.
date?
Yes, it is Tuesday, May 19th at 6 p.m. And I am happy to get the full information. So it is a fundraiser, but it's also a time to be able to, I will have at least 3 pieces there in person.
We're going to get paid.
Okay. And yes, if you write down your contact information, I will email the flyer out, for sure.
And also, Jeannie, wouldn't it be good to put it, Jeannie, into the church,
Yeah, we could put it in
the church newsletter?
I also have an iPad where people can type in their information, that's easier. We can pass that around.
Okay, just cut out.
I have an iPad as well that people can type their information if that's easier as well.
Well, you have a website that has information about this.
Yes, yeah, so anyone who wants more information.
What did you wanna write on the paper?
If people just want their names and their emails, then I can email people all the information. Yeah. Thank you, perfect. So, I'll put that over here. Do a couple, your question?
We're not sure, but we thought it said women's now.
Oh, the Chillicothe.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then we were right.
Exactly. I know, it's a little, they aren't always forthcoming about that information.
Well, it kind of,
They don't even have typical signs up that say don't pick up hitchhikers and show up. You got right through the middle of prisons on every side.
Right, yeah, there are some counties, I think it's Madison County too, where you're like, I've been to the Madison Men's Institute, and then literally across the street is the Max, and it's like, if you get leveled up, you just go across the street. It's like, wow, this is,
Well, prisons are big business.
they are big business, they are, and they need a lot of space, so it makes sense they're in rural, but it offers jobs, but it's also, it's hard.
They're really trying to keep it from becoming privatized.
Oh, please,
Because
yes.
that is, say the world divide with
It
fees and
is,
stuff.
it is, it's hard when things have gone private, everything goes down, including care and accountability. So,
Because then it's all about what money you bring in.
exactly, and then people are making a profit by how many bodies are in the space, and that should never be the way of justice.
And it's
Is
really
ever.
hard to get reform.
It's
Well, they don't reform in prisons, they've given that up years ago.
They have, and they say that they do, but they don't.
Yeah, they say they do, they don't, they're,
That's not a
like, if
priority.
you want to try to reform yourself, there are programs to help you, but you
Yeah.
have to do it on your own. And ask the questions to get that help, otherwise you're just gonna be sitting there and spending your time.
And they'll give you
They just, I think they've shown that the statistics are less than 50% success rate with reform.
Yeah.
So they just stopped. It's really
There's-
housing.
Yes, and it's mental health hospitalization, which it shouldn't be, because they don't offer the help there, and it's drug rehab, which again, they don't offer the help. It's just, most crimes are committed either for poverty reasons or mental health or addiction. And with working with the women, what I saw is a significant amount of them, there was an abusive situation happening with the man, and so there was coercion. A lot of them felt like there wasn't a choice. And so some of the women, I didn't really know where to put this, because I was like, prison's always bad, right? And a lot of them were like, actually, prison's the best thing that happened to me. My life is so much better now. I've never felt so free until I got into prison. I'm like, if that's true, something's really wrong. We need to be taking care of women better. Where they never felt like they had a choice. And even Megan, who got out, she was in an abusive marriage really since she was 16, and he was 40 years older than her, and he was hunting her and her 2 children down through 3 states, and finally she gave up and confronted him with a gun, and he had a gun, and she ended up shooting him first, and she got 25 to life, even though it was technically, they didn't take anything into consideration that she was fleeing her life with her children, and he kept finding her. So when you're hunted with a 2 and a 4-year-old, like, I'm not sure what I would do, you know, so.
How
it's
was your
hard.
mental health during this?
Yeah, that's a good question. It went up and down. I fortunately have a lot of experience working in some really hard spaces. But the more that I got to know them and care about them, the heavier, you know, they would kind of toss out a story where it would be like, yeah, when I was 9 and my dad beat me up, I would run away. And then he would call the police on me and I get sent to juvie for being a delinquent. And it's like, wait, you got sent to juvie for running away from your abusive dad? What? Like, let's expand on that a little bit. And my sister's a social worker and a therapist, and so of course I would call her afterwards and be like, is this true? Can I run away? She was like, yeah, it is. It's not used, I guess, as much now, but in the past it has. So a lot of these women came by an adult. If they committed a crime, they had a record since they were 9, but it was because they ran away from an abusive parent who then called the police on them. So there were times my husband would know when I would have a hard day because he'd come home and I'd just kind of be like, and I would offload on him and tell him everything, and he would just be a good support. And then I would talk to my sister, who has years of being in harder spaces than I have, and you know, it's just, so some of those. I also had a friend who came with me she was a co-facilitator with me, and so on the way there we would process, and on the way back we would process, and that just sharing that load was really helpful. But there were times where, yeah, I mean, honestly, my faith was one of the only things that got me through. The fact that I worship a God who cares about these people and have called me to the least and the last. I'm like, okay, it's not just me. The wave, you know, and going into the massive structure of the carceral system is like, I will never make a difference. But then one person is enough, and one difference is enough.
We're
Yes.
running out of time,
Yes.
but I would say to you, thank you so much
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
But, you're running out this slogan that I go back to a lot, and I'm like, you're doing the good that is yours to be done.
Mm-hmm.
That is
what I can do.
That is,
Yeah.
yes.
What's your
Thank
website?
It is wholepictureproject.com.
Or you have an artist website too.
Yes, and then the artist website is Kate Benedetti. I think I can even pull it up here.
I did take a picture of that final
Okay, good.
slide and I'll send it out to my forum email
Perfect.
list so that you all can get it in that way.
Yep.
And maybe you can include the information about the fundraiser.
Yeah, I can, if you want more information, you can write down your email and your name here, and I will email you the flyer, I can email you the website, whatever you want, and I will put you on the newsletter so that whenever an event happens, or an exhibition, and people who partner with us, and people who donate will be invited into the prison for the exhibition in the next year. So there are definite benefits to being able to connect and be part of our community.
There's a piece of paper and a pen over on the table by the door.
Yes, perfect.
Just put your name and maybe your email address.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.